His Imperial Highness Prince Estefanos Matthias of Ethiopia, Her Royal Highness, and I must add my friend, Ndileka Mandela, Her Excellency Baleka Mbete, as a Speaker, former Deputy President, and one of the architects of the freedom that some of us today enjoys. His Excellency Ambassador Abdul Salih, the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, His Excellency Ambassador Zanail Arid Batua, Dr. Jane Mufumari, CEO of Freedom Park, Dr. Liaquat Azam, Dr. Vuyani Boy. Many doctors here, if you get sick, there's no problem. With His Excellency Nelson Mufa, Resident Coordinator, UAE Ambassador Maash Almeli, Turkey Ambassador Asha Gul Kandash, Russian Ambassador Ilya Rogachev, I hope he's named after my favorite Russian poet, Ilya, Indonesian Ambassador Mr. Wahan, Burundi Ambassador Alexis Bukuru, Japanese First Secretary Chubachi, and if I haven't mentioned your name, I'm still standing on that very same protocol that was mentioned. I come here today and I feel at home because I met so many PhDs this morning, people with a PhD. I also have a PhD. I passed high school with difficulty. I would like to tell you the most frequent question I get asked, will the GNU last? That's the most frequent question. And you're going to get an answer today and a reason for that answer. But I think there's 5 stories I would like to share here today. And you see, I don't have a paper in front of me because I'm speaking about Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. I'm speaking about the most talked about man in the whole world. Many of you sitting here today have listened to many lectures. You've read many books about Mandela. There's really nothing that anybody can tell you. But I want to share a different side to this great man today. I want to tell you 5 stories. For those that don't know, I spent my whole youth in jail. I grew up in prison. And I wasn't a political prisoner. Many people say, you were at Robben Island. I don't say yes or no. If God put in their heart that I come from Robben Island, who am I to argue? But I was a common criminal. I grew up, became a gangster at the age of 12, 13 years old. At the age of 15, I was involved in my first bank robbery. At the age of 18, I was one of the most wanted criminals in this country. At the age of 20, I was sentenced to 17 years in prison. I wasn't sentenced to any prison. I was sentenced to the Grootfontein maximum security prison for hardened criminals. I went to jail. I joined one of the most feared gangs in jail. In 3 years, I led the 26th gang. And just for the ambassadors that's here, in South African prisons, you get 5 gangs everywhere, very organized. Gang number 1 is the 26th gang. They're the capitalists of the system. They're there for money-related issues. Gang number 2, you get the 27 gang. They violent, they stab, kill. Gang number 3 is the 28 gang, got involved in sexual activity in jail and violence. Gang number 4 is the Big Five gang. They're the guys that work with the cops, that inform. Gang number 5 is the Royal Air Force. They're the guys that escape. I don't know much about them because they're never there. But I became a member of the 26 gang. And I went from being an honorary member to leading the 26 gang. And I was extremely racist. I hated white people with a passion. I hated white people extremely. And I was released from jail. But just before I went to jail, Nelson Mandela broke my heart. Nelson Mandela stabbed many of us then in the back. Nelson Mandela betrayed many of us then. When we heard Nelson Mandela was coming out, I remember for the first time I woke up at 5 a.m. in the morning. My mother said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Mom, don't worry where I'm going. I'm coming back with good news." She said, "No, I want you to paint the roof of the house." I said, "Don't worry about painting this nonsensical house. Where I'm going, Mandela's coming out. I'm going to choose the house of a white man in town." And I went to town, went to look at the most nicest house, former President Balekambet. Because I knew Mandela's coming out, we're going to take the white people's houses. Because there's so many black people, I had to choose 2 or 3 houses, just in case somebody had my dream house in mind. And we were ready when Nelson Mandela came in. And Nelson Mandela stepped us in the back and he spoke about reconciliation. Now, many of us didn't understand what is reconciliation. And we asked the educated people, is it time for us to go and repossess? And they said no. Mandela said we must work with white people. We were very disappointed. Went to jail. Nelson Mandela was outside and he said in one of his speeches, how a society treats its prisoners is how you should judge that society. 2 days after that speech, we were no longer sleeping on thin mattresses. We got beds, mattresses, extra blankets because of that speech. And I didn't really forgive him totally, but I was on my way to forgiveness. I mean, you can't compare a house to a blanket, but yeah, and a mattress. And I came, when I was in jail, the number 1 rule about jail is that you don't interfere with a gang, with the work of another gang. And if you told me 2 minutes before I decided to change my life that I would change my life, I would have laughed at you. I would have asked you to check your temperature. A young white boy came into prison and he was given a chocolate by one of the gangs. And as a 13-year, 12-year-old boy, he ate the chocolate. And that evening, they started to rape him. They raped that child for many hours. He cried, he screamed, he begged. No one helped him. I was there. I didn't help him. The next day, he was laying in a corridor naked in his own blood, shivering. And everybody jumped over him because he's a white boy. And just as I was about to jump over him, I looked at him. And something got hold of me. And I said to him, I think you should go to the cops. And he said, I can't go, sir. The criminals killed me. In that moment, at great risk to my own life, I picked him up and I took him to the wardens. And I said, this child has been violated. And they said, there's no proof. I said, look at the blood on my T-shirt. And they said, there's no proof. And I said, I'm going to give you all the proof in the world. And they laughed at me. And I remember when I was sentenced, Judge C.B. Salier said, he asked me, before he sentenced me to 17 years, he asked me, tell me why I should not sentence you to a long prison sentence. Tell me why I should tell me mitigation of your sentence. I stood up and I said to him, I don't want you to give me a lesser sentence. I said, I'm a colored male. You don't know how we grew up as colored boys. You don't know our story. It's too late for you to want to feel sorry for me. You should have felt sorry for all the other colored boys that died. I don't want your mitigation. Do what you want to do. I need to go. And he said he's never met somebody, he's never sentenced somebody that has a potential to become somebody in life. And Judge Sibisal said, you are one of the most intelligent people I've had in my court. I'm sentencing you because I know you can make a change in your life. Went to jail, and I decided I'm going to help this boy, and he was white. And I called my mother. Now, one thing about women, that you get to learn that now. They know when they're being lied to. They just sometimes act like they don't know. So when we men lie, they know you lie, but they act like they don't know. So I called my mother. I said to my mom, Mom, I'm changing my life. My mother said, Amen, my child. What? I said, Mom, I need you to do something for me. She said, anything you want, my boy. I said, Mom, I need you to buy me a book on how to operate a secret video camera. My mom was so excited for my change. I asked for one book. She sent me 14 books to jail. I had to tear off the cover so people couldn't see what I was reading. Long story short, I read those books. I studied those books for 6 months. I read nothing else. And I took the money I made from drug selling in jail, and I told my sister, and I got another friend of mine to call his brother to bring us cameras. And we had to dismantle those cameras. We smuggled those cameras in bit by bit, screw by screw, part by part, wire by wire. And we made a video in jail of how they sell children in the sex trade in jail. We made a video of all the guns that's being smuggled. We made a video of how prisoners are truly being treated. And President Nelson Mandela President Thabo Mbeki then sent a commission called the Jali Commission of Inquiry. I was already 6 months before my release, but I came out of jail, and the 6 months, I was released early for good behavior. When I came out of jail, it is the norm. When you've been a general in jail, you come out, you must get a push, a start, what you would call seed funding to start your criminal empire. And I refused the seed funding, and I asked my mother. I was living by my parents' house, small house. And every day I would see, I was on parole, I would see these white kids in our neighborhood. And I asked my mother, what are they doing here? And she said, they're coming to buy drugs. And I said, which school are they at? She's like, Grey College, St. Michael's. Next morning I went to the principal of the school and I said, your kids are buying drugs, I would like to tell them about the dangers of jail. And he allowed me to speak at Grey College to his children. After that, I was too embarrassed to ask him for money to go back home. Taxi money. But I can tell you they gave me good food. White schools got good food during break. If you ever want to go and you're hungry, go and give a good talk at a white school, they got even dessert. They don't just say, thank you, Ralebua, utle hape. No. They feed you. And I walked home. When I got home, and this is story number 2. I got home, my mom was crying. I said, Mommy, why are you crying? She said, what did you do again? I said, Mom, I did nothing. She said, you lying. I said, Mom, I did nothing. I swear, I did nothing. She said, you lying. I said, why are you saying I'm lying? She said, because there's a big white man looking for you. When you come from jail, you want to hear no white people are looking for you. I said, where is he? She said, behind you. I turned around, and this man said, I'm looking for Gayton McKenzie. I said, I'm also looking for that bastard. I said, what did he do to you before I tell you what he did to me? He said, Gayton McKenzie went to my child's school today. Got 2 boys in that school. And he spoke about the dangers of jail. And my boys came back this afternoon. And the one gave me an unlicensed firearm and the other one gave me mandrakes. And they said they want to change their lives because they're scared of going to jail. And I want today to give Gayton McKenzie something. And he took out his checkbook. And I took out my ID book. And I gave it to him. And I remember he had the check in his hand and I said, don't give me a check. Give me a job. He said, yeah, I think I'll give you a job at my company. So he worked at a company called Chop Security. No, the whole car was branded Chop, 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 Chop. When I jumped in, my neighbor says, did you see? He got arrested again. They took him again. I went. I got a job in 2003. I was paid 1,000 rands a month at Chop Security. I had nothing. And I worked, and after a few months they called me in. And I remember one of the funniest things in my life. In jail, when you say no, this is what you do. When you say yes, because the warders look at you from the top. So when a guy says you have drugs, you go. It means yes to the 2 of you. But to the warden, it means no. So they asked, they said, Mr. McKenzie, you've been working here for 6 months. We took a bet that you wouldn't last 3 days. We want to give you an increase to 20,000. Do you accept? I said, they said, can you go stand outside quickly? So I went outside like, yes, yes, yes. Then I realized, hey, I just said no. While they deliberating, I wanted to come back. They said, no, wait. I said, no, I just want to say something. No, you're right. You've been doing a great job here. Will you accept 40? I said, yes, I will accept 40. I will accept 40. And they said to me, do you know how to be a motivational speaker? I said, yes. And I didn't really know how to be a motivational speaker. And there's a lady called Ria de Villiers, a white lady. And I went to her school. And I said, can you teach me how to be a motivational speaker? She took me under her wing. She taught me how to speak properly. Because I was from jail, I speak Sabella, prison language, I mix it, and it's a mess. And Ria took me under her wing. She taught me many things, how to eat with a fork and knife. She taught me so many things. And one day I heard a conversation between her and a friend of hers that said, you are taking the biggest risk of your life. Because this man come from jail. You drive with him in your car. You go everywhere. And I heard Ria says, Mandela taught us Ubuntu. And because of Mandela, I'm going to show this prisoner, ex-prisoner, Ubuntu. In that moment, I finally forgave Nelson Mandela for not giving me a house. And I want to say to everybody here today, we must not just say good things. As I'm standing here, I'm embarrassed about my life. I'm embarrassed about my life of crime. I have lived a life that nobody should live. People don't understand why I don't take a salary as a minister. Because I don't take a salary because I owe this country so much that for me, it's an absolute pleasure just to serve this country. And people have forgiven me. People have forgiven me because Nelson Mandela taught us forgiveness. I am the product of the kindness of strangers. I am what I am because there was a man that lived called Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Nelson Mandela is our North Star.